Smoking up tonight, another review and preview of all things AFL HCC and in the Black Diamond Cup competitions, in particular men's and women. But we got something a little extra special tonight in a few mid-season teams of the year selections from the three of us in the Bar TV commentary crew. And if you're not familiar with us, I'm Cori Hopper. I'm with Ash Borg and Shane Darwin, the kings of live streaming Bar TV commentary crew. We're heading all the way up to Nelson Bay this weekend, boys. But how are we?
Yeah, great, boys. How you going, fellas? What a wonderful thing it was to have us all back together last week. I really enjoyed it.
It was good fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. It was great. The three amigos or the three stooges or the three, whatever you want to call them, Ghostbusters. We were there.
I'm just pretty happy.
Four Ghostbusters.
This bomb cyclone's blown away because during the week there was a lot of wind and there was some rain around here, and then today was a beautiful day. So it's like it feels as though the weekend has treated us all right. We're going to have a nice weekend of weather for the footy tomorrow, because I was a little bit nervous there. Sort of come Wednesday, Thursday, I thought, geez, are we going to get a game in? But no, it looks like it's dried pretty nicely.
I think it's done its damage for winter, Shane. I reckon the wind has come through. We got one washout round, but we get to make that up next weekend, which is fantastic. But I reckon that's it. I reckon it's going to be clear skies for footy on Saturday from now on, isn't it?
Love it.
Isn't it? Yep, correct. So just getting a bit of clarification from the universe. They said yes. Yeah. Now, God, boys, you've given us a 45-minute cut-off point, and I'm beside myself because I love to chat. I love to chat. So we may as well get ripped straight into it, shall we? Let's not muck around. Forget the pleasantries, for goodness sake. Let's talk footy. All right, we're off and racing with the women's last week. Who wants to lead off on the women's competition? So we had shall we start with the Bar TV game?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. You got the scores in front of you there?
No, yeah, we'll have it in a minute.
So it was a fairly one-sided affair for our Bar TV match of the round last week. We hyped the Warners Bay Bulldogs up and Amy Pittman's team up to come out and give it a little bit of curry. They'd have a couple of good wins, but unfortunately Newcastle City, they turned on some style of football I don't think we've seen them play this year too. They were hot to trot. Ended up winning 128-3. So it was a very one-sided game there. Unfortunately, Warners Bay not able to capitalise on their good run, and they were just outclassed all across the ground by a City team that they just looked like they were on fire, didn't they?
Yeah,
absolutely. They played 10 minutes of competitive football from the Bulldogs. I thought they looked like they were going to, they kept Newcastle City goalless for about 10 minutes, but once that first one opened up, they dead set. Newcastle City Blues, that women's team, made me look like a genuine douchebag on Saturday, because I was a bit critical of their style of footy on Friday night, and far out, didn't they give me a silencer? Sarah Halverson is an absolute wizard, and Ruby Sparks fly, didn't they? Ruby Spark, she was outstanding. Unearthed another massive talent there. But yeah, poor old Warners Bay beleaguered. If they thought they made a couple of big inroads in the weeks leading up, which they did, it certainly silenced them pretty quickly on the weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, I had Halverson as best on. She had 36 touches and a best on ground for mine. We picked Ruby Spark as the bar raiser, which I think she's earned. 6 goals was great. They truly dominated from start to finish and silenced a few critics. I think Warners Bay, they were gallant. They tried their best. And, Wellings, Pittman, Burge. I think Zali Burge is a fine for Warners Bay. She gets better every week, every time we watch her. And Ingham, who is a terrific performance, done well all year. But to be honest, they were no match for a team that, by all intents and purposes, should be in a grand final this year the way they played on Saturday.
Without a doubt, they were epic. They were certainly back after a couple of weeks where they sort of maybe a little bit in the wilderness as far as Newcastle City Blues women's team go. They certainly came back with fine form, that's for sure. And I did mention one thing during the broadcast. It's a bit of a shame that we've seen so much progress from the sides at the bottom end, the lower end of the table on the ladder. They make so much progress, and then they come up against a result like that. It must be really disheartening to an extent, because Warners Bay, for all intents and purposes, made some great strides this season, and not to say that it's all undone, but they would have been hoping to close that 76-point deficit from the last time they played. That was just not to be, unfortunately. So still work to do with the sides at that end of the table, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It was a very similar story out at Pasterfield Oval where the Cardiff Hawks went to town on the entrance Baddo Bay, ended up winning that one 25-16, 166 to the entrance Baddo Bay, no score. So very one-sided traffic up there at Pasterfield. And, Jay Pitto's got those Hawks playing a sensational brand of footy at the moment. And, if we talk about Newcastle City being in a grand final, gee whiz, you'd be hard to not pencil Cardiff in there as well, the way they're going. They monstered the entrance Baddo Bay on the weekend.
Yeah, they'd have to be favourites after the halfway point of the year, Cardiff. They've taken all before them. They took the Blues to school, and when they finished schooling them in the first half, they showed absolutely no mercy in the second. 58-0 at half-time, and then they kicked 17 goals in the second half, including 10 in the third and 7 in the last. It just was unbelievable. It would have to be one of the highest cup scores of all time. I tried looking it up during the week, but work got in the way. Charlotte Day, 9 goals, best on ground. Another bag for Cori to stick in the bag raiders list, and almost a double bagger. You almost could put a double
nearly. We haven't had a Sanders sack yet this year. Harrison Pitt went pretty close last week. Charlotte Day closest for the women. Did Mia Wilson get 9 once, or was it 8? Yeah, 9. So a couple of 9s coming out for the girls. So exciting stuff. But yeah, that was epic, wasn't it? 166 points. Oh my God! I reckon the Killarney Vale Bombers would have been looking at those live score updates with absolute anticipation, and probably maybe a little bit of nervous anticipation when they come up against those two sides again next time, because they're going to have to be at the absolute medal if they're going to find their way back into a grand final again this year against those two sides. They're clearly the two standouts so far this year, Newcastle City and Cardiff.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Corey. I think they're both playing really, really good football. And Killarney Vale, we know that they're a well-drilled side, and we know they've got some talent, but they're going to really need to be on their absolute A+ game to be able to match it with those other two the way this year's panning out.
But those two sides have just proven that they can kick a mountain of goals now, which is not something we used to expect seeing in women's footy. There's usually a bit of a cap or a ceiling on their scoring capacities. Not these two sides. They just keep piling them on if the defence isn't strong.
Yeah, indeed. And the third game was out at Rose Point Oval, and we'd talked this one up on last week's show, sort of saying how the Roosters had been almost perpetually down on the Central Coast. They'd played at Adelaide Street and then Hilton Moor and then the entrance, and then they felt like they were camped down at the Central Coast there for a few weeks in a row. But they finally got back out to Rose Point. We were a little bit excited about what the offering may be coming up against a Terrigal side that had a loss the week before against Warners Bay, and I think did all of us tip Singleton in that one? I think we may have, and in the end they did it relatively comfortable, 4-7-31 to just the 4 behinds for Terrigal Avoca. So fantastic to see the Roosterettes getting their first W on for the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was an important day out there, Ash, wasn't it? It was an important day.
It was Memorial Day for them out there, and just the 2-year anniversary of the Hunter Valley tragedy, and they got back together at Rose Point Park. They started and finished strongly. They got the well-deserved win for the first one of the year against a team from Terrigal Avoca that just don't look like the team that we saw last year and had high hopes for this year. Yeah. Something's amiss.
I believe they're without a coach now, Ash, too.
Yeah, so I hear, yeah. Well, something's amiss, and it's a real shame for the club. But for Singleton, Samara Reevy, who only started playing football 2 or 3 years ago with her twin sister, Chloe Jones, who's a former Sydney Swans Academy player, and Faith Radmacher, who's one of my favourites. She just works so hard, her and her sister. And they're all under 20 years old. They were the best players for Roosterettes in a real team effort. Hopefully it carries them on to another couple of wins before the year's over, because that would really lift the spirits down at the Chook Pen. It was a great win.
Yep, Faith Radical Maker, I'll call her, because she's quite radical. She's as radical as anybody in that side. Good. She was tireless the week before when we called it against the entrance Baddo Bay. And she didn't have a lot of support there, but she played in the ruck all day long and just was tireless non-stop. So good to see her being able to enjoy a big win with her teammates. And question marks over the Terrigal Avoca Panthers, that's for sure. I believe they're down a women's coach at the moment, which is a bit troublesome. I've heard that Luke LePage might not be there anymore, so he was just instated this year. So work to do there at that footy club to try and continue that climb and not that one. They're sitting 6th, I think, at the moment, so well outside finals race, unfortunately for them. So hopefully they can turn it around.
Well, it doesn't get any easier this weekend too, Corey. Yes, they're playing at home, but they've got Newcastle City going down the highway to play them. We saw what Newcastle City did to Warners Bay last week, and unfortunately, it looks, for my mind, that looks as though that's going to be a really tough day at the office tomorrow for the Panthers in the Women's Cup. They're going to be they're probably facing some one-way traffic there again tomorrow too, I'd suggest. Ash, can you see there being any difference to a Panthers flogging?
Oh no! Look and this is out of respect for Terrigal. Really, my summary of the match or my preview for it really is Newcastle City exude class. Terrigal Avoca off the boil and are working on a rebuild. City will just be too classy. Kept it as simple as possible. It's all you can say, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know if there's a great spirit in that side at the moment. So I don't know. Funny things happen when coaches step down from the role, or I don't know what the exact circumstances are, but funny things happen with players. So, sometimes they can react really well to stuff like that. We see it in the AFL all the time. Every AFL club seems to have a win after a coach gets sacked. So it just seems to be the way of things. But I don't know if that happens so much at community level, especially against a monolith like Newcastle City. They were as good as I've ever seen in women's footy last week, and they've got players everywhere. Sorry, my sister's trying to call me. I'll just decline.
Fair enough.
I'll call you back, Ali, if you're watching.
So we'll see how that pans out. We'll keep an eye on the scores tomorrow. We won't be down there for that one, but we'll keep an eye on the scores and post some of those as we go through the game. Out at Rose Point Oval, the Roosterettes get to string together 2 weeks in a row on their home deck. Unfortunately, they've got a tough run too, with Cardiff making the journey up the highway to play them. And as we said earlier, Cardiff really demolished the Entrance Batto Bay last week. And I don't think they'll be looking to give anyone any mercy. And it certainly won't be something that they give to the Roosterettes.
No,
there's
absolutely.
a race on. There's a race on between those top two sides now. Like literally, the gauntlet's been thrown down, and they're going to see who can outscore each other every week until they come up against each other, I reckon. And you can count, the Kalani Vale Bombers in amongst that. That's probably the only club I can see giving them any resistance at all. So for the other clubs, it's about just enjoying the experience, trying to curb their the threshold of deficit that is going to invariably occur, and just try and look forward to having wins against other sides that are a bit closer placed to them, because there is poles apart between those two and the next sides after them. And as I say, Kalani Vale about the only one who could possibly threaten them, but I even see it being a tough task for them at the moment.
Look, Singleton looked to get the 2 in a row, but the only thing they've got is home ground advantage, really. Cardiff are the premiership favourites in my book in Black Diamond Women's Cup, and that's Newcastle City with a very close second, but Cardiff are just very strong this year. Got outstanding players all over the ground. They've got a wonderful spine. Some of their talent, look, Taylor Smith, who could be anything. Emma Heike, who's had a wonderful season. Charlotte Day, Maddie Smith, Tara Grace Brawley, Caitlin Pickett, Bonnie Swan, Sav Newton, Madison Marsh, who's been playing at the Greater Western Sydney Giants in their academy, and just someone to highlight tomorrow. Not that we're covering them, but just someone to highlight for hopefully future games. A 17-year-old by the name of Sienna Harley, who used to play for Port Stephens. When Port Stephens couldn't get a team a few years ago when I was president at Singleton, we welcomed about half a dozen Port Stephens players to make 2 sides at Singleton, and that eventually broke down and became one really good one. Sienna was one of the stars in that team, so really look for her to start to light it up at senior level once she gets used to the pace. But for mine, look, I won't even give a score margin. Cardiff probably will seal it in the first quarter and a half if they're fair income. I just wish Singleton all the best tomorrow and hope they can stop a juggernaut.
Yeah, what we hope is just to see the side score. That'd be a big thing. We don't want to see too many donuts this year. We've seen enough already, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, well, listen, I hate to ruin it for you, but there's possibly another pretty tough one-sided game down at Adelaide Street tomorrow in the women's as well. The Kalani Vale Bombers are hosting the Warners Bay Bulldogs, and we know that Amy Pittman's Bulldogs are a much improved team this year, but that Kalani Vale team is still, third favourite for a good reason. They're a class side. They're playing on their home deck, and they'll be pretty hard to stop for the Bulldogs, I think.
Yeah, they
Yep.
come off a rest last week. They're coming off a bye last week, and the Dogs trying to recover after an absolute lesson was handed to them last week. They've been truly tested, Kalani Vale, by the top two, but are a level above everybody else. So for mine, Bombers need to try and get some percentage out of this game. They've got some really good players in their team. One, again, to highlight, former entrance Bateau Bay, tall Gracie Jurek, who not sure how many games she's played this year, but it'd be great to see her perform for Kalani Vale because that just makes their team even stronger again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important for Kalanival to pile on a big score. I think in terms of those top three sides going towards finals, it's a big psychological game from here on in, and it'll be very much so. The bigger deficits that they're able to accumulate against these respective oppositions, and I hate to say it, but that's how it's going to be. The more, I guess, kudos or credibility they're going to take into the final series. And let's face it, those three sides and whichever the fourth side is that makes it up, which is going to be a great race for those the bottom place four clubs to duke it out and try and get that final spot. That's going to be an interesting battle in itself. But for the top three, they're going to start winning parts of the finals with every round from here on into the end of the year, just in that psychological battle, because it's going to mean an awful lot in the first quarter of the first final that they play, whoever it is that they end up against. So, that's yet to be determined, that top three. I don't think it'll change much from what it looks like at the moment, but anything can happen between now and the end of the year. So expect Kalani Vale to come out and try and pile plenty on tomorrow.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, listen, as far as broadcast games go for the Women's Cup this week, unfortunately, given the scheduling, we haven't been able to get ourselves a broadcast game because we are going out for the men's to Dick Burwell Oval, which is going to be a very exciting game in itself with the Marlins hosting the Cardiff Hawks there. But there was no women's corresponding game for tomorrow, so it's a single broadcast for us. So good luck to all the ladies playing tomorrow. We will keep an eye on those scores and keep you updated during the broadcast. Now, one thing we have done during this week is as we hit sort of roughly the middle of the year, obviously there's some rounds that have been and gone and rain rounds that have come back in, but we're at around the halfway mark of the season. And we've put together our team of the year, how we see it, each of us individually, at the midway part of this year, and we thought tonight might be a fantastic chance to show those teams and have a little bit of a chat about where we see those happening. So we might have a look at those boys. What do you think? Brilliant.
Yeah, for sure.
Cori, I'm going to throw you in the hot seat first, so we can all throw a few stones at you and. Yeah, tell us what you thought for your Women's Cup and how you structured your team.
Well, I'm going to say that I've got most authority out of the three of us here, fellas, because I'm the one who's been at every single game so far. So I've had a chance to have a look at every play, all the players. So I'd like to think I've got a fair idea of what I'm talking about. But in all honesty, it's going to be heavily filled with those top three sides that we talked about before, the team of the year for sure. But that isn't to say that the other clubs don't have players, at least one or two players in that mix that are, top quality footballers that are really important in trying to help those sides improve. But just going through it across the back, these are all players that at some stage or other this year and possibly even last year have impressed me to the point where I think they're well and truly of representative standard or certainly the highest ilk in our competition. So I didn't have any great criteria other than just they got to have lit up the game at some point when we've seen them. So Jasmine Wellings, that angry mongoose, hungry mongoose, I'll call her. It just plays great every week for Warners Bay. Is this what I'm meant to do? Go through them all like this?
Go through them, mate. Well, maybe call out the highlights. You don't need to necessarily go for every player, but call out your highlights while you pick your structure.
Okay, yeah. Sophie Birkinshaw, the younger sister of very famous Birkinshaw in the Terrigal men's side, of course. Tough year for the Panthers so far, but I think she just plays well and she's very strong. Holly Gibbons, I think she tore it up when we watched her play Newcastle City in a loss, I think, to Kalaniva earlier this year, but certainly electrified on that day. I thought she was best on. Tamara Nicholas is solid every week. She's in amongst the best of Terrigal week in, week out. and a rep player as well. Charlotte Day kicked 9 on the weekend. Say no more, right there. Angelica Diamond, well, yeah, she was electric. I think she was playing half back on the weekend, but we always seem to be saying her name over and over again. And plus, Diamond's a good name for a few footy puns when you're trying to do some commentary. So we like those surnames, as is Bonnie Swan too. That's another great surname. She's been a favourite of ours for a little while, hasn't she, Bonnie? She just keeps getting better and better. It looks really strong this year too, and keep constantly featuring the best. With Sarah Halverson, I don't think she's born of this planet. I think she might be off-world or something like that, because she is just a dead, like, honestly, she's a wizard of some sort. Wherever the ball is, Sarah Halverson's not too far away. So it makes sense for her to be in the middle. Kirsten Kessler, I think she's been red hot for Killarney Vale. Featured in their best a lot. Really, really impressed me in that Killarney Vale game against Newcastle City earlier this year too. So she's been tremendous with an awesome amount of run and movement of the ball through the middle. Sparks flew on the weekend, so Ruby Spark gets in there, largely based upon the game that I saw on the weekend. So I haven't seen too much more of her, but she had that little sidestep I call the sparkle, which was just ridiculous. She did it over and over again, and not one person pulled her up on it. So good work there. Faith, the radical maker, she makes everything radical for Singleton. Even though they're having a tough year, I think it's about right for her to be in the side. Catherine Donnelly, she's a ferocious midfielder for the Tarragona Panthers in what's been a tough year for them so far. Maddie Smith, one of my favourites, absolute firecracker down forward. You always feel like something's going to happen when she goes near the ball. Mia Wilson, a great front target up forward. So you've got a strong enough side around her that she can stay up there, and she's kicked 9 through the course of the year as well. Amy Pittman, well, it makes complete sense. She's got a great football brain, excellent leader, and outstanding goals or in the middle. So always manages to kick a goal when sometimes they're the only goals that Warners Bay kick. Ayla Flynn in the ruck, she was outstanding on the weekend. I just thought her ability to hit targets on the run and handle the ball below her knees was tremendous for a player in the ruck. Brooke Turner is arguably the best midfielder in the competition. I think she's red hot, as is Savannah Newton too. She hasn't featured too many in the best for her side this year, Savannah, but it's probably because there's so many guns in that team. But make no mistake, she defies the laws of physics a lot of the time when she plays. On the interchange, Elkie Long's been outstanding for Newcastle City all year. Evie Walkerton, she's 16, I think, 17, one bar raiser twice so far for us, and is just a dead set head and shoulder standout every week. Tara Grace Brawley, I think we've seen her once this year, and a bit of a new name for me, but was impressive to the degree when we saw them. I think it was Anzac Day game, maybe.
But a couple of weeks ago up at Cardiff as well. So yeah, we might.
Yeah, but she's impressed. She just doesn't need a camera on her for her to play well. Apparently, she's been picked up quite a few bests for Cardiff this year, and with a name like Brawley, that's great, isn't it? Grace and Brawley all together in one name. I think that's a commentator's dream. And Charlotte Lane as well, just an extra one getting there. I only saw her just the one time, but she's picking up a lot of bests in the entrance Batto Bay in what's been a pretty good season for them while they're sitting 4th on the ladder, I think, at the moment, the entrance Batto Bay Blues. So very good. Coach Jay Pitto, he's done so good over the last couple of years with Cardiff. Really just driven them to the right spot, hasn't he? So I've picked him as the coach. And there's no emergencies on there, is there?
No, just the great.
And probably commentator. Well, I'd have to go with myself, just purely on the fact that I'm there every week. So,
Ash, did you want to put the blowtorch on Cori's team?
Yeah, please do.
No, mate, I like the balance of it. Hey, I didn't really think of a couple of them, which is great. Charlotte Lane's a good choice. I spoke to Scott Gray during the week. He rates her very highly at the entrance Batto Bay. So it's a terrific pick there. No, it's just an overall good team. I have to agree with you about the coach, but I haven't selected Jay, and there's a reason behind it. And it's not because Cardiff aren't great or he's not a very good coach. I just he's got a real lineup of talent there.
Yeah. And Cori,
that's fair.
Charlotte Gray kicked 9 last week. You've stuck her at half back.
Yeah, I know. How about that? Well, last time I saw her, she was playing halfback. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
So, but what a great option to have. Just slide
Yep.
forward. When Mia Wilson's kicked her 9, just drop Charlotte Day up there to have a day out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we'll obviously get to the next team next. I think there was one player that you left out, and one player with Ash as well that I'm like, I can't believe you didn't pick that person. For my mind, Caitlin Pickett. I don't know how you didn't put her somewhere in that either down the spine and the back. I think she's the premier defender of the competition, but each to their own. So you'll have a chance to have a go at my team in a minute anyway. So
Yep.
there we go.
Right. So that's my lineup. Let's see if my lineup would beat your boys' lineup. Let's see.
Yeah. Hold on one sec. I've got to get this next screen up. It's a little bit of toing and froing here, but we'll get that queued and we'll get into yours in just a sec. Check here, Ash. Hold on 1 second.
No worries, mate. And I reckon feel free to, I'm pretty open to, like, I've umpired a lot of games of footy, mate. I'm open to a lot of criticism. It doesn't really concern me.
I loved having a look at these teams as we went through the week. I loved having a look at the thought process behind everyone.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear what you guys were saying tonight, because I think we all think very similarly, but we've all got our own little, there's a lot of very similar names across all the teams, but we've just put them in slightly different areas, and I loved it. I think it was bloody fantastic.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like that.
So, look, I'll go backline. I won't go through each individual player. Backline, back pocket, Elkie Long, Caitlin Pickett, I think, is the best defender in the comp. Angelica Diamond, Cori's explained her. Elkie Long, the reason I put her in the back pocket is because she can go on the wing in the middle and then have a rest at the back and do some defensive work and run off the back. Halfback, Holly Gibbons from Killarney Vale, Sarah Helverson and Jessica Gollidge from the Entrance Bateau Bay. She has been one of the best players for the year for the Entrance Bateau Bay and is a very good backline player. Helvo can play anywhere, so I just think Sarah Helverson running off halfback would be absolutely devastating, and then hitting someone in the middle would just be, just a joy to watch. Holly Gibbons is a really tough representative player 2 years in a row. Your centre is Katrin Donnelly, Tara Grace Brawley, and Beth Wood. I think Bethany Wood's a very highly underrated player. She's tough and uncompromising, and she's got a very, very good right foot. The other
she was on my emergency list, Dash, incidentally.
Yeah.
I had her on the emergency list.
Half forward, Melina Ayres. If you've got anyone on the field that's an X factor, I reckon you've got there with Melina Ayres. She's devastating. And she could almost, if she played every match, she'd win the goal kicking based on how well she's played this year. Charlotte Day, half forward, tall marking half forward, very tall young lady that can take a big grab and can definitely find the big sticks. Brooke Turner, who won a grand final for Killarney Vale at half forward last year, kicking a goal from outside 50. Outstanding player. And then my forward line's pretty similar to Chops, really. Maddie Smith, Mia Wilson at full forward, and Isabella Sullivan from Newcastle City, who is a tall-ish player and would almost be my second ruck if I need it. So that's why I've got her there. She can rest up forward and then run around the centre. My ruck, Faith Radmacher from Singleton, I wouldn't is she the best ruck? She's probably not the best pure tap ruck in the comp, but she's certainly the most agile. And I think in the team that I've picked, I've gone for speed, agility, and fitness. And I think every single player there has got outstanding levels. Jazzy Wellings, I think if she was in a Cardiff or a Newcastle City, she'd win the best and fairest in the comp. It just Warners Bay don't win enough games for her to get the votes. For mine, she's one of the best midfielders going around. She's so good. And love watching her play. And I've made her captain as well. She was captain, I believe, of the rep side last year too. So she's got leadership capability. Bonnie Swan, under 17. She wasn't under 17 last year. Runner-up in the 17s and first grade best and fairest in the comp. So she's one of the premier midfielders in the comp. Interchange, Evie Walkerton, Savannah Newton will be a bit of a pocket rocket. I could put anywhere, either on the wing, midfield, or forward pocket to kick a goal. Emma Heike's been one of Cardiff's best players all season, so she rates a mention. And Ayla Flynn, she's my second ruck, and Isabella Sullivan will be my third. I've got joint coaches. I'd have Brett Godfrey as my coach and Amy Pittman to assist. For mine, Brett is a very, very clever tactician who knows how to get the best out of his girls, and Amy just speaks for herself. She's been a wonderful coach and mentor to a group of girls who really needed it, and they've improved because of her. I couldn't find a space for her in the team. She was probably my first or second emergency. But yeah, Amy is a wonderful coach and a terrific human being, full stop. I think Brett could coach any side and get them to improve. And
I should have picked Brett and might have smoothed things over between me and Newcastle City.
I'm doing this for you, Chop.
Thank you.
No,
you,
Brett,
mate.
Brett for mine's the best coach in the comp. But the argument there is if you win the league, are you the best coach in the league? And that's sort of been that argument over many, many years. Just if you have the best team, that makes you the best coach. Brett Godfrey's proven a few times that he can take his team to heights, and he's also suffered some lows with them too, and he's ridden the bumps with his City girls. So I think, yeah, for mine, at the moment, he's the best coach in the league. Yeah, that's my team. More than happy to be criticised and critiqued and everything. I reckon it's been a lot of fun. I think it's a great thing. Emily Brown gave us the idea during the week, and I jumped at it. So I've said to her we can put our teams up on the website, and
you know what's great about it, Ash? You know what's great about it? It actually says that the league actually trusts what we have to say, which absolutely. For a long time I wasn't sure if they really did.
No,
in fact, I thought they had. I swore they've sent some people around my place a couple of times to try and silence me on a few particular issues.
Well, I can tell you now, the league, the clubs in about the next fortnight to 3 weeks will get their nominations for the team of the year, and then the voting process will start the next month, and that will be before the final series, I think, so that they can get everything organised. A bit rushed last year, and Emily really wants to make
good
a lot smoother.
Which is great. Good.
She's really keen.
Well, good stuff for the league for getting onto that this year, because it is an important thing and we want to make something of it. And hopefully with these sides, they might even have some influence on rep sides. And just before we let Shane fire away, Melina Ayres, mate, she would be a walk-up start in my side, but I just don't know if she's played enough games this year. So I guess I had a small criteria where I wanted to see them play. Well, in the men's side in particular, you'll see 75% of the games they've had to have played. Otherwise, I didn't select them. So that was just a bit of a standard of mine. That's not the rules for Team of the Year officially, but just what I did. But other than that, yeah, Melina Ayres is a gun. So, yeah, some good selections in there. Isabella Sullivan is also another good asset there, mate.
And the only one I was, questioning about Ash was just, Amy Pittman. I was surprised she didn't get on the field. As you said, first emergency, and can't question your rationale. I think it's I love the way we've all put together teams in a slightly different order. There's this thing sharing for me. Here we go. Let's try this one and have a look at mine and get ready to take mine apart too. Why not? The back line, well, we've seen those players' names in both the other two teams. I think that they speak for themselves. For me, when I was setting this team, I started the very first name I put on the board was Sarah Halverson in the center. I think she is the most dominant player in this league. She's got the best skills for finding and hitting a target. So for me, Sarah's name went on there first. I think she's outstanding. I put her in the center for that very reason. I know Ash, you had her in the halfback to deliver some ball down the field. I just wanted her in there getting the ball and delivering it from the center. My next name on was Caitlin Pickett. I think she's the best defender in this league. Put her at halfback, and then my third name was Mia Wilson in that full forward position. I sort of built myself around that bit of a spine, and a lot of the other names you'll see are very familiar to what you guys had. My ruck, I had Jade Archer. I think I was the only one that picked her in my team. I thought she was outstanding when she played Killarney Vale a few weeks ago when we broadcast that game from number one. She was my number one ruck. And I actually put Faith Radmacher in the half back line for similar reasons to how you had Sarah Halvo there, Ash. I wanted her speed and height to sort of sweep across that half back line. I kind of figured I'd almost didn't even need a back line. If I had Caitlin Pickett as the rock in half and Faith just running across and picking up the ball on the intercept, the ball may never even get in that back line was my theory. Up front, Elke and Tara Grace Brawley have been fantastic this year. We've seen those. Maya Walsh gives me some extra height in there as well as Ayla Flynn on the bench. And I had Amy Pittman and Savannah Newton in my pockets, two right little terriers that could crumb you a goal from anywhere. Jazzy Wellings in the centre with AJ Angelica Diamond. My bench was Ruby Sparks, Charlotte Day, Isla Flynn, and Catherine Donnelly. And I had Jay Pitto as my coach because I think he's got that Cardiff team just humming along nicely. We saw them go head-to-head with Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, and Jay's team came out on top comfortably. So he was my pick at this stage of the year for my coach. What do you think, boys?
Nice, good, solid. I think my side would spank both of your sides, just personally.
I think we've got 90% of the same players.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Well,
you guys did. Who did you guys pick as like the commentator of the year, though?
Oh, Shane Darwin.
Oh, well, after that job, I definitely selected Ash.
Nice. No, that was good, boys.
Interesting. We've got a lot of players the same across the board, so it obviously shows that we think similarly about how the game works. I know I was pretty specific about having running players that could mark and have tall marking players that could run, carry, and are very fit. And that was a certain sort of way that I wanted to structure a team. And I'm sure the two of you had different rationales for doing it. And I think that's the beauty of having one of these things. And it'd be interesting to hear from people that watch this or see it on our socials when we put out the teams in graphic form, just to see where other people go. Because there's no doubt we've missed someone that's been terrific all year that we just haven't thought of. And it'd be 100% great to have that.
Yeah. Oh, and there's a few players out there that deserve to be in there too. And just, you flip a coin on whether they make it in or not. I actually submitted four emergency players too, just because there were some players that were really close, but I understand there's got to be a cutoff point. But of course, just to let all the viewers know, there's nothing official with those either. Don't expect that that's going to be what the team of the year is at the end. But that's just our little play on it at this stage. And we get to watch the game from the best seat in the house. We really do. So we get very familiar with all of the players through the course of the year. I feel I'm a bigger fan of some of the players in the competition as what I was of players when I used to coach a team myself. It's a great privilege and opportunity to call the games every weekend, and we get to see players develop and maintain and sustain efforts through the course of a year. So it was really good to be able to be a part of that. I'm thankful for Emily to give us an opportunity to voice that. So I'm waiting for to be savaged by all of the clubs. I'm no doubt there'll be some people.
Yeah. That's it. We might keep a track of those, and at the end of the year, we might revisit who's got the most number of players from their team in the final selected team. Maybe that's how we decide who's got the winning team in that respect. Now, speaking of winning teams, we were at number 1 Sports Ground last weekend, and we saw an absolute ding-dong battle in the Men's Cup. It was Newcastle City up against the Warners Bay Bulldogs. It was a bit of an arm wrestle, certainly in the first half, before Warners Bay kicked away. They got themselves out to a 40-plus point lead, but then Newcastle City finished pretty strong, ended up being a 12-9-81 to the Warners Bay Bulldogs, to 10-5-65 Newcastle City Blues. Boys, this game had absolute finals intensity from the first bounce, and I loved every single minute of it.
Pump up. Best game of the year for me, hands down. It really was. And the result, not surprising. I think I tipped them. Did you? I can't remember. Did you guys tip them?
No.
No, not me.
So I tipped Warners Bay. I don't know. I've got a weird affinity with Warners Bay. I always seem to tip them when they're up and about and they have a win. So I don't know if I'm just lucky or whatever it might be. But that was an important, incredibly important match. For the record, I don't think Newcastle City will lose too much sleep over it, although they will definitely be wary now that there is that Warners Bay are certainly a contender. For me, it was a critical game for Warners Bay. If they are even going to tilt for a premiership this year, this was one they had to win. And the fact that they came out and did it with such compelling way about it, there's no doubt in my mind their mindset now is fully adjusted and they believe it. They believe they've got what it takes, and they certainly have. For Newcastle City, I think Jordan Deere is such an important player for them not to have him on the weekend. And he just kicks goals at important parts of the games. And he might not be, a huge possession getter or stuff like that, but he just kicks those important critical games, and he was hugely missing. Of course, no Sheriff Woody either makes their forward line significantly less potent. But for my mind, Warners Bay's midfield and their halfback line in particular they were really, really potent. They were going all day long. They got flogged around the park quite a bit. There was at one stage, I think they had 3 players lying on the ground. They just worked themselves into the ground, but and some errant contact and stuff like that. But they are the real deal, Warners Bay, and it was such a well-deserved win for me. I've thoroughly enjoyed the game. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought Tom Gardner was outstanding for Warners Bay on the weekend. He was just the dominant midfielder of the match. I would have had him best on ground if
he was against Terrigal too, Ash. And when they played the Terrigal game, he was electric then too. So he's a find.
Yeah, he was outstanding. Look, and I think the president of the Max Collins fan club would have been very happy with his charger on the weekend, kicking 5 goals. And finally, he sort of we've not been overly critical, but I think we've made some comment around the fact he's not been a straight kicker during the year. 5 goals was a wonderful return.
I didn't even notice.
No, didn't notice he wasn't kicking straight. Yeah, but look, Ruben Miller, for mine, Ruben Miller played really well for Newcastle City. A 4-goal contribution from the forward pocket's always terrific. He's a consistent performer. And he kicked 2 in the last quarter. Max Quinlan and Liam Tuddy, I thought, were good. The Babbage, the Savage, I called a lot of him during the match. But a couple of really interesting ones, fellas. Warners Bay in the middle section between the second and third quarter kicked 10 of the 11 goals in the 2-quarter period there, which I thought was just unbelievable. And then for some unknown reason, or maybe, I don't know if they stopped or thought they were going to win the match, but Newcastle came back. That 5 goals in a row, they would have really got some confidence from that, Newcastle. But like you said, Corey, I don't think they'll lose too much sleep over the loss. It's always good to have one before finals just to sharpen you up and make you realise that you're not the finished product. So
they've got number 1 on the goal kicking and number 3 on the goal kicking for the year were both out. So when you know that you've got that kind of firepower still to come in, on that note, arguably one of the finest defenders, certainly one of the most dynamic and spectacular defenders in Zach Lauritsen, also wasn't available with, and a bit of firepower in Riley Hawes as well, were not available for Warners Bay. So they're both without really important cogs in their best machine. There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, yeah, what you said there, Ash, Newcastle being able to stabilise and kick a few late goals and get himself back in, whether it was the foot off the throttle for Warners Bay, I can't imagine it was entirely that, or injuries started. Soreness and injuries and fatigue would have definitely been taking a bit of a toll by that stage, I imagine. But that's what you've got to be aware of with Newcastle City Blues. They're never done.
They played so hard in that first 3 quarters, the Dogs, that I reckon they were almost physically spent in that last term. But you know what? I think this is, and you said it on Saturday, Corey, and so did Shane. This is a culmination of the project that Nathan Harkness has been building for a couple of years now. He's not quite at the pinnacle yet. They're not quite at the summit, but Saturday proved that they can get there.
Yep.
You know what I like about it? Just sorry, Shane. Just was coaching Gosford in season 2020 that was cut short by COVID, and the last game, I think it was round 9, we played Warners Bay. That was the Gosford side played Warners Bay, and looking back on that, we actually won that game. And I've quite often gone back and had a look at the lists of that game over the years, because it's a fairly personal point in my life, and that when that finished up, and Gosford, as we know, don't even exist now, unfortunately. Nothing to do with me, of course, but but that game had so many of those players that are still at Warners Bay now. That game had those players. So Warners Bay and Gosford were very similar sort of position, I guess, at that stage, were hopeful, wanting to progress. And it's been really a wonderful thing for me to be able to watch and see closely Warners Bay continue on with that journey and see those players. I think Zach Munns might have been in that side, Seb Thomas, the Devils. There was all these guys that are still there now 5 years later, where they are on the cusp of being able to have the greatest season Warners Bay has ever seen potentially. And Nathan Harkness has been there all through the duration of that, and he should be very proud of what he's been able to achieve at that footy club. Those boys are in it, all in, one in, and they believe, and there's a full buy-in there. And I think that's wonderful to see for a club like Warners Bay to finally be there.
Yep, sure is. Listen, if that was a preview to the grand final, I'll take that again in that last week of August or whatever it is, because that was a great match. And those two teams should be right up there come the finals time. And that's no disrespect to any of the other teams. I think there's still the avenue there for a Terrigal Avoca for sure, and maybe one of the others. But if we had a City versus Warners Bay grand final, I think we'd have a pretty good game on our hands from what we saw on the weekend. It was a pretty good game out at Max McMahon Oval as well. We had talked up the Maitland Saints going into that game. They had, of course, came off their first win for the year, and the Killarney Vale Bombers had been a little bit dejected, and we didn't know how Shaxben were travelling. As it turned out, those of us that tipped Maitland, and I was one of those, had a bit of an upset handed to us on a plate. Killarney Vale running out relatively easy winners in the end, 13-16-94 to 6-5-41. So the Killarney Vale Bombers really bouncing back and proving that they can still shape this final, even though maybe they're certainly going to struggle to push for a top four. They can still shape it by taking out any team on any given day.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. 6-2 second half sealed the win for Killarney Vale. Spoonman, mate, Brandon Lloyd, 4 goals. He's trying to get himself off the canvas, isn't he? He works hard every week, Brandon, and he's a credit to himself and his club. Lockie Henderson and Rhett McGregor got 3 each. Ryan Arthur was a judge best on ground going through the conversations during the week. Maitland, interestingly, had 6 single goal kickers. I really thought Maitland would just be a little bit more competitive than that game. I'm slightly disappointed in the result for Maitland, but Killarney Vale, they continue to try to build. I did speak to a couple of the players during the week online, and they're united. They're behind Cori Shackleton, and they believe in what they're doing. So, it's only going to be a matter of time that they rediscover that form from the premiership. They've still got lots of players from that side, and they're still a force. I think they can do some damage in the finals and in the last few rounds if they're on song. They're definitely not where they were, but I think they're capable of being there if they just continue to work hard because they've got the nucleus.
Well, the reality is they're not completely done this season yet. I think there's going to be a bit of a duke out for we're still hoping we might turn into five-team final series too. So I don't know if there's been any movement on that, but I'm going to just quietly push that because I'd like to see it. I think it's a worthy thing to happen. It might not happen, but they're not completely done. I think it'll be determined this weekend. Pretty much the result will probably be one way or another will whether their season stays alive. They've left it very late to have a run, but we were expecting better things from Killarney Vale there. It's good to see Lockie Henderson. He's one of the charges I had at the Gosford, very potent forward/midfielder. Although it was very hard to get away from the forward line. I remember Lockie Henderson. He loved to kick a goal. So good to see him getting on the scoreboard the last couple of weeks there, and definitely a foil they need to support Spoons up there in the forward line because he does get the job done every week, but he needs more players kicking goals with him, and they seem to have got that. They're very strong in the defensive half, Killarney Vale, and I just don't think, I think Maitland might have not expected them to be as ready to go as what they were, because Killarney Vale have sort of been a bit up and down so far this year. Have had a couple of sizable losses, so I think KV just turned up, and Maitland might have been a bit shell shocked but it's good to see Maitland getting multiple goal scorers, isn't it? Because that means that they're also heading in the right direction. Only one to the big offloader, unfortunately, but I'm sure we'll see him get a couple of big scores again before the end of the year, coming back off a hamstring injury. But I think it was probably a good result for Killarney Vale, all things considered.
Yeah, certainly was. And plenty of big scorers down at Hilton Moor last weekend. Nelson Bay went down there, coming off a very narrow loss to Warners Bay. And we sort of were thinking, how does that sit them against the Terrigal Avoca Panthers? How will they go? Well, they ended up getting a bit of a one-sided event there. 19-14, 128 for the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. They had goal kickers all over the place. 6 goals, 7 to the Nelson Bay Marlins. So an 80-odd point win there to Terrigal Avoca, really stamping themselves back into that premiership window again after a couple of average weeks where they were probably a little below par.
Yeah, well, the loss to Cardiff a couple of weeks ago, I reckon, angered Terrigal Avoca just quietly. They made a statement on Saturday against the newly promoted Nelson Bay. 36-point lead at halftime set the win up. They kicked 10 goals to 3 into the second half. The Pitbull was back, 9 goals, 9 massive goals. He kicked 4 in the last quarter. Alec Walters also kicked a bag, and the big Cobra, Luke Bury, with 3 goals. Ethan Williams and Jack Grimm Lee in the best. And then when you got those two in the best, you got a very dangerous Terrigal Avoca. For Nelson Bay, look, they'll be stung. They'll hurt from that. And they'll also know where they sit in the pecking order of the Black Diamond Men's Cup. Adam Grant, Jaden Reimer, who's probably one of my favourite all-time Black Diamond Cup players. Jaden, he's such a classy. I just remember him as a junior coming up through football and then playing his first senior games and just seeing how classy he was and thinking he could have been anything, Jaden. And Lachlan
Elliot Davey medal winner in 2019, wasn't he?
Certainly was. Yep. Certainly was one of the youngest. And Lachlan Blythe were in the best 3, and they had 6 goal kickers kicking singles. So, look, Nelson Bay, they'll go back to Dick Burwell Oval. They would have copped an absolute drenching on Tuesday, about 80 mils worth in that, what they call it, bomb cyclone that didn't really go off, really. It was more of a big storm that everyone else gets every other week. But, yeah, they'll be stung, but they'll get another chance to prove themselves this week in the match of the round.
I think I said it here last Friday, fellas, did I? Beware the Wounded Panther, and that this was going to be more of an indicator of exactly where Nelson Bay are at than any of the previous matches, I believe. And it's proven the case too, because Nelson Bay now sit, I think, 4th, just ahead of Cardiff. So which makes this weekend's tussle between those two significant. But we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, this is the sort of thing that what Terrigal will do if they get a little touch up or they get exposed or shown one particular week. You can bet your bottom dollar they won't be down the next week after that. So to come out and Harrison Pitt back in the side with his 9 goals, that's massive. He's equal top with Zach Munns with that 9, straight just like that, like a bullet, straight to the top of the Goolagong Trophy chase. Tremendous stuff. He could be very hard to stop if that's the type of form they're going to be in. Kurt Fleming's playing great footy out there as well. The veteran there, just in amongst the best most weeks. And with Ethan Williams as a rising star too. Terrigal are going to be a show. I hope we get a schedule with the Terrigal Avoca Panthers over the next couple of weeks to get another close look at them, because as they enter the fray, being down a little bit like that, they'll be a bit secretive with what they expose, I guess, but they'll be working on their plans right now of what they're going to do to make amends for finals last year, not making a grand final. But
they'll be contenders again for sure. Now, speaking of contenders, we did talk about Cardiff and their chance to sort of get back into that top 4. They had to take their opportunities in the Baywatch, I think I called it, which was 3 games against the Bays. The first one was against the Entrance Baddo Bay at Pasterfield Oval last weekend. It was a pretty gallant Entrance Baddo Bay. Unfortunately, they did go down only slightly, though. It was Cardiff 9-14-68, Entrance Baddo Bay 6-13-49. So not as big a result as maybe we'd tipped last Friday night. We thought Cardiff might be in some hot form and looking to make a statement. They did make a statement. They got over the line by just over 3 goals.
No, Cardiff are on fire. Don't worry about that. But the reality is, the Entrance Baddo Bay played arguably their best game of football so far. So take nothing away from Cardiff. They're still rolling along the right way. The big news out of this one is probably that the Entrance Baddo Bay found a new gear and a new cog and played really high and above themselves. So for them to probably get within 20 points, 19 points of Cardiff, who are possibly, I won't say they're playing as good a football as what they were playing last year, but they're on their way towards finals standard of footy, and Cardiff are going to be one to watch from here on in. I said last week that the Entrance Baddo Bay and Maitland Saints will break some hearts of some clubs before the season's done, and they might get themselves a scalp or two from sides much more fancy than them. Well, they nearly did it the very following week. They went down against Maitland the week before, and then they've bounced back to get within 19 points. 6-13. You can see there's both sides very inaccurate, so there must have been a bit of pressure in the defensive areas for both sides. But the word that I have it was that it was a electric performance by the entrance Batter Bay, and they never ever shut it down. Big performance by Ryan Kesby. You might remember Ryan by his haircut in particular. Very noticeable hairstyle he has there. Dane Robertson, Pat Murph, Scott Reed's having a great season this year too, by the way. So some interesting stuff and a great performance by the entrance Batter Bay to narrowly go down against a resurgent Cardiff Hawks. So I get that on very good authority about that game, and it wasn't from the entrance Batter Bay camp either. That was from outside of that source, and it was a glowing tale of the entrance Batter Bay. But yeah, don't count Cardiff out after that result, boys. I probably should have told you that after you give us your predictions for the Cardiff Nelson Bay game.
Yeah, I'll keep my review very short and sweet. They got over the line, Cardiff, but I reckon they learned a lot about themselves for future opponents, because the entrance Batter Bay almost caused the shock of the season on Saturday. And the entrance Batter Bay shows they're capable, but they just need stability and consistency, which I believe might be a little bit missing at the moment at Passage Road. And Jake Sullivan put in a big performance for Cardiff, and I think he's one to watch over the next few weeks for the fight going towards the finals.
Yep. Well, you talk about consistency. It feels as though we're having a little bit of deja vu, because the entrance Batter Bay are hosting Maitland Saints on Saturday. We saw them, I think, only 2 weeks ago hosting the Maitland Saints down there. It was a really fantastic game, Cori. You called that one beautifully. It was a very tight finish with the entrance Batter Bay kicking up to try and get that margin bridge, but they couldn't quite get there. Maitland getting their first win. Where are we seeing this one tomorrow? Is it going to be a carbon copy? Are Maitland going to come out early and kick away, or are entrance Batter Bay going to do something different?
Yeah, I've actually stuck with Maitland this week. I know it's probably a bit of a surprise given the margin that was in the last few games, but look, the entrance Batter Bay tested Cardiff all the way. Maitland jumped the entrance Batter Bay last time out and limped to the line a few weeks ago. They'll be keen to do it again. I reckon they see this as probably one of their last opportunities to get a big scalp or a scalp. Question is, have the Blues learned the lessons from that match, or will Maitland notch up another victory? And I'm going to go towards Maitland in a very, very close contest. I think they'll be keen to reverse what happened on Saturday against Killarney Vale. They'll be dirty on themselves for letting that one slip.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game. It was very entertaining when I watched it a couple of weeks ago. I think this weekend that's just gone, the round 10 results are going to be telling in terms of how this one's going to pan out. I'm going to tip the entrance Batter Bay. Just the info that I got on the way that they played, and for Maitland not to back up against Killarney Vale. Yep, they'll certainly be up and about the Maitland Saints. They had a really good win. They played very well against the entrance a couple of weeks ago, but the entrance finished strong and were out of it in that first quarter. I think they're going to start well like they did on the weekend. They're up at half time against Cardiff, so they've obviously learned how to start their games a bit better. And I think at home, I think they will even up the ledger.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So the entrance Batter Bay.
I think you're on the money there. Now, just down the road at Hilton Moor, it is the two perennial favourites of the one of the Hunter Coast, one of the Central Coast. We've got the Terrigal Avoca Panthers hosting Newcastle City. That promises to be a doozy. Both teams obviously up that pointy end of the ladder.
Yeah, any other week we'd be covering this game. It's a superb match. It always is. It's the battle of the heavyweights. Panthers absolutely dominated Nelson Bay last week, and they went game fishing from go to woe. City were humbled by a hungrier, tougher Dogs outfit last week. They were missing two of their best, as Chop said. With a potentially more potent forward line this week, I think City. Look, I'm only going for Newcastle City in a coin toss, because I had about 5 or 10. I think I had 10 coin tosses on in my lunch break on Wednesday, and I think 7 of them came up Newcastle and 3 came up Terrigal. That's the only reason I'm going for them. If only Bar TV could be in 2 places at once. It's just that we are spoilt for choice this weekend. Good luck to both.
But I don't mind staying down and doing this game if you want. I'll stay down here if you want. It's a long drive to Dick Burwell for me. And I think I'm going to get lynched anyway.
Yeah, listen, they have met one time already. They played the Tuesday night makeup game from the washout earlier. It was Newcastle City by 10 points. Listen, I think maybe on the home deck and with Harrison Pitt finding some form, I'm going to tip the Panthers for this one.
Yeah, far out. This round for the Men's Cup, boys, is so critical in terms of the final makeup and how it's going to affect the finals. I mean, we got 1 and 2 playing. We've got 4 and 5 playing as well. It's just these results are going to be crucial. It's such a great round of footy coming up. We've got. I'm going to pick the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. Jordan Deere not named again. Jack Woodham's not named again, albeit his little brother Max has been named. So the dynasty continues there at the Newcastle City. But I don't know. I don't know if they can do it without either of those two, without both of those two guys. With one of them, yes, maybe. But with both of them, I think it limits their firepower too much. And I know what the Terrigal Avoca Panthers steam train is like once it gets on a roll, and there is some fire in the belly there. I would imagine after what's been a ordinary mid-season performance for them. Their women's club side is not going too well, and there will be someone who will be stoking the fire there at Terrigal Avoca Panthers. You make no mistake, and I think they're on at the moment, and their guns are on as well. So I'm going to pick the Panthers.
Fair enough. Well, the Bombers might have their guns on tomorrow, and they're going to need to have them on. They are hosting the Warners Bay Bulldogs. Shaq's men have been up and down. Last week was a great win for them, but they're up against the side who's just knocked off Newcastle City. So no tougher ass maybe at the moment than playing against Warners Bay. So for my mind, I think the Bulldogs have got stars all over the place. They get Zach Lauritsen back. They get Riley Hawes back, and I'm tipping the Bulldogs for this one.
Yeah, tipping the same, Shane. Lloydie found his feet last week. Could prove a handful for the Dogs' defence. I think Zach Lauritsen could go to him or Seb Thomas and play a role, although Lloydie is quite quick, so it'd be interesting who Nathan Harkness does match up on him. The boys from Faganova were just quite simply devastating on Saturday. They punished everything the Blues did wrong, and if they play anywhere near that this week, they'll be too strong. I've got Warners Bay by 4 goals.
Yeah, I feel for Kalani Vale Bombers. They've finally found a little bit of form at the moment, but they just can't cut a break. They got James Regis back into their side a couple of weeks ago, and he's already broke a collarbone or something last week, which is a real shame. Another Gosford boy doing well at Kalani Vale. Real shame. He's a great defender for them to lose at this stage. And with the side that they're taking into the game tomorrow, I would rate them as a chance just about against, top 4 sides with that squad. But coming up against Warners Bay right now is the worst possible time to be doing that, because I think Warners Bay have a level of belief right now and a reason. They've got so much reason to be continuing this roll on. They're 50-year-old football club, and I'm not sure if they've won a premiership before in Black Diamond or not, but either way, they haven't. They're perennial features in the finals, and they've finally got a squad that can do the job. So I pity anybody who comes up against him at the moment. And for Kalani Vale, that look like they've found some form, it's a shit time for them to come up against them, unfortunately. But look, that's the dice being rolled, and this will be Kalani Vale's last shot. If they lose this weekend, that's season done for them. They definitely won't make finals. They're another one out of the race. So there's a lot for them to play for. In a good game, I believe Warners Bay will do it, but it won't be a shellacking, I don't think. I think it'll be, maybe a 5 goals or something like that.
That's right. Now, we are out there, and speaking of shellackings, is Corey Hopper going to get a shellacking when he gets out the car at Dick Burwell tomorrow? We're going to find out, because our Bar TV match of the round is out at Dick Burwell from 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. It is the Nelson Bay Marlins hosting the Cardiff Hawks. Should be a really interesting game. What do you think, Ash?
Yeah, well, look, this is a true finals deciding match. It won't ultimately decide the finals, but it'll go a long way to seeing what it looks like. If you look at the ladder, if Cardiff win, they go to a 50% match ratio. And Nelson Bay drop down to a 50% match ratio, it'll put Cardiff in 4th on percentages after Saturday if Cardiff win. But if it goes the other way, they'll have about a 2.5 match gap to make up with 7 to 8 rounds to play. Look, for mine, expect this to be one for the ages. I think these two clubs, it's been a long time since, it's been a while, I'd say, since Nelson Bay's played Cardiff in first grade. It probably 2 or 3 years, I'd say, since Nelson Bay's been properly up in first grade. They had a lot of rain on Tuesday and Wednesday in Nelson Bay, and so expect Dickburn all over to be very soggy and very wet and slippery in parts. It also drains quite well. It's one of those grounds they use when it does get a bit hairy around the league, but I still expect to see some wet areas around the ground. It'll just be a war. I think it'll be a true war on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to going to Dickburn Oval and seeing Nelson Bay again. Wade Blackburn, interestingly, is lined up at halfback for Nelson Bay. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does there. Billy Barton's another player. I really like how Billy plays. And, it'd be really interesting to see how he goes on Saturday. Where do they play Sam Howard? Do they play him up forward or down back? I think, you want to keep him up forward. Does Jake Sullivan continue on the form? Jack Pratt, is he back, working hard and doing what he does best? Big Booth lines up. There's so many permutations in this game. It's going to be a great match Saturday.
Jamison had a run in the reserves last week, Ash, I saw.
Who was that?
Jamison Bufler played in the...
Wow, there you go. Could be a sign of the form he's in, perhaps. Anyhow, I'll close off by saying Nelson Bay by 4 points in an absolute classic, and it will potentially go away to possibly seeing Cardiff miss out on finals if they get beat tomorrow. I hope they turn up with their best. I think it's a coin toss. I'm picking Nelson Bay because it's at home. That's really what it is.
What a round of footy, though, fellas. Like, have a look at the stakes on every single one of the games. Like, the stakes, the wooden spoon, they're playing off for the wooden spoon, Maitland and the entrance Baddo Bay. This will be probably just about determine who finished on the bottom of the ladder. Colonial Vale are playing for their season to stay open. Warners Bay in the flip side are playing for top spot. They want the second chance come final, so it's a must win for them. Nelson Bay and Cardiff are playing for the last spot in the finals. Like, literally, they're playing for that. It'll probably come down to those two when it comes down to it. And like you mentioned, Ash, to go 50% match ratio, that match ratio is going to have a player point in it, because if you play less games, you have to win less games to get a higher match ratio if the maths works out. So that's what I was talking about, that potentially becoming a controversial thing, but it's the only way to determine it at this point in time, unless they become 5-team final series, which I'm still hoping for. But and then we've got Terrigal Avoca, even though they're not playing for the top spot against Newcastle City, to beat them brings them within one game, brings them and Warners Bay sort of within one game, suggesting they both win, and within striking distance to that top spot. So we've got a round of football that are huge stakes this week. There's lots riding on it for all teams as to how these pan out in the end, and none of them higher stakes, I think, than this one. Nelson Bay will get a chance, coming off a big loss, will get a chance to prove that they're not one-trick ponies or anything like that, that they belong where they are at 4th and 5th. And Cardiff, who appear resurgent, got a little shaky against the entrance Baddo Bay last week, but last year's grand finalists should be able to continue their roll on. And if not, well, then, they're obviously exactly where they are as well. I'm picking Cardiff because I think Cardiff still got their best ahead of them this year, and I think they're moving towards that best as well. They've got firepower now, Cardiff, in the forward line to support Sam Howard and the likes up there. So I think they're going to come through. I think they'll beat Nelson Bay tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I think 4 weeks ago we saw the Marlins get a win at Pasterfield, and they won by 7 points over Cardiff a few weeks ago. I think they can do it again tomorrow, and on their home ground, Billy Barton back in that forward line. I'm tipping the Marlins. Right, gentlemen, we are we've run out of time. We had an hour limit, and look, we're already over the hour limit, and we haven't even got to the team. So, Cori,
that was never going to happen. That was never going to happen. You guys are way too ambitious.
I want quick, concise teams here, Cori. So
let Ash go first, then.
You, mate. There we go. There's our Cori's men's team.
Why do I go first again? I thought we were going to mix it up.
Oh, we can mix it up.
I can't be quick. I can't be quick.
I'm happy to just sum mine up. I'll tell you the style of play I want the boys to play, and I'll tell you why I picked them like that. We'll go quick.
All right, hold on, Ash.
Yeah,
Let me
bring it
get
up.
yours up, and then we'll get in here, and
Oh,
I'll
we
do
were
the same.
ambitious with 45 minutes, but yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, it's a really tough round this week.
The only way you're
a
going to
tough
do it in
round.
45 minutes is if I turned up 20 minutes late again.
Yeah. All right, Ash. Talk us through
Right, here
your
we
team.
go. Oscar Smythe in the back line for my team of the year. Oscar Smythe, Cardiff, Scott Birkinshaw, Terry Glavoka, Jake Sullivan, Cardiff. I think Oscar Smythe's been an unheralded player, very what do they call him? Underrated for Cardiff. He's a jet. So I like how he plays. Jake Sullivan's classy, can do a lot of great running off the back line, and Scott Birkinshaw just speaks for himself. He's been the fullback in the team of the year, I think 3 years in a row. So can't miss him. I've actually got Sam Howard off halfback because you can swing him up forward if you need. So I'm playing him as a bit of a swing man down back. Seb Thomas, centre halfbacks, one of the probably the tallest players we've got in the comp and one of the best high markers in the team. Mackenzie Lee Croft's a wonderful halfback that plays terrifically every week. It's very consistent. My centres are Dylan Bonham from Cardiff, Pat Murphy, and the captain from the entrance Bateau Bay, Jaden Reimer. All very unique players. Dylan Bonham played
Nelson Bay.
who do I say? Jaden Reimer for Nelson Bay.
entrance.
Dylan Bonham played at Pennant Hills last year and played really well in AFL Sydney. And by all accounts, he's starting to pick up form this year, and he's been doing a great job for Cardiff. Pat Murphy's Mr. Consistent for the entrance Bateau Bay. I think he just churns out great performances week in, week out. Jaden Reimer's the same for Nelson Bay. Half forward, Brandon Lloyd. I think my front six would have to be the most potent front six I've seen in the AFL 100 Central Coast. Brendan Lloyd, Jack Woodhams, and Ethan Maher. Like, imagine being a defender, having to defend them. I just cannot fathom how you would do it. But Lloyd, he's a terrific forward. We know what he does. Sheriff Woody, he's a magician from anywhere. And Ethan Maher's that player you could probably put him as a second ruck or even a third ruck, and he'd do a great job. He's just tall, lean, and can run all afternoon. Forward pocket, Zach Munns. Well, he's in there because he's the highest goal scorer of the comp, and I reckon he's been one of the most improved players of the league this season. He is such a talent. And you won't miss him with the boots, but he's just been brilliant this season, Zach Munns. I think he really deserves a spot in the team of the year. Jordan Deere, well, he's the Morris Goolagong winner from last year, and he's missed a couple of games, but he's almost in front this year. And you can't have a team of the year without Harrison Pitt in it because he's a superstar. For mine, the rucks, Adam Miller, Tom Gardner, and Ryan Arthur. I think Tom Gardner and Ryan Arthur are two of the premier midfielders in AFL 100 Central Coast. I'm sure there are a lot of others, and I'm sure I'd be very much shouted down and argued from many different teams as to their midfielders. But I genuinely believe those two are two of the best. And the interchange, Rylan Hoffman, I've got him in as the interchange because you can swing him in as a ruckman if needed. If Woody or Jordan Deere don't get on the board, you could stick Rylan Hoffman at centre forward or full forward and play a role. Jack Grimm and Lee, because Jack Grimm and Lee's just unbelievable. And if any of the centres or half forwards don't get it right, you can stick him in there and he'll do a role. Corey Deverell's, I reckon, that mongrel you need in a team. Someone that will just get in and just do some damage for 10, 15 minutes at a time, take him off, bring him back on. I really like how Corey plays. And Harrison Lack from Nelson Bay can play a role in the back line as well. He's a very versatile footballer. And I know we haven't seen Nelson Bay this year, but I generally know how these guys play. So I'm very happy to put two of them in my team of the year. Coach of the year so far, I think by the length of the straight, he's got his team in a very good position, set to pounce in the second half of the year. For mine, is Nathan Harkness. He's just a wizard with the team he has, and he's building something very special at Warners Bay.
Yep. Love it, Ash. Great team. And
good work, Ash. No Zach Lauritsen. No Zach Lauritsen.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, the church, I think he spent a fair bit of time out this year, hasn't he? Or has he had a fair bit? I overlooked him. I would say I overlooked him.
Listen, I think it's tough, and listen, you're going to see my team come up on the screen here now, and the players you leave out, I think, show the strength of this league because you can't get everyone in. You look at a team there that doesn't have Jordan Deere starting on the ground. You know, that's how that's how tough it is to pick a team this year. So my team, Listen, a lot of similar names to what we saw just there. Some of the key differences there, I had Max Quinlan in my backline, whereas you had Birkinshaw down there. I picked Luke Flack. I know he's only played the 1 or 2 games. He's gone down to Melbourne now, but I love him as a running halfback. Zach Lauritsen, Church is I think, one of the premier floating halfbacks in the league. I love the way he cuts off the ball, and you can play him forward if you need to play him forward there. Ethan Marr out in the wing gives a little bit of speed and a little bit of height, and much for the same reason as Ash, you could have him in at second or third ruck as need be as well. Tom Gardner's an absolute gun. I wanted him in the middle, and Jack Grimmonley out in the other wing. I had Maxi Collins as president of the fan club. I have to have Maxi in my team. It's one of the bylaws of that presidency. Maxi's in there. He has got a fantastic set of hands, and he's probably the best mark in the league at the moment. And if he gets his kicking right, he's on. Rylan Hoffman, I wanted him on the field. I love what he's done. He's a nice big body. Billy Barton's impressed, kicking a lot of goals at the plate level and then also at cup as well. So I've got him in there. Zach Marns, Harrison Pitt and Woody rounding out that. I had Finn Hurley as my lead ruck. Finn's been great this year for a young player, only playing his first games of cup football. I think he's been outstanding. I had Adam Miller alongside him. I mean, you could have Adam jumping, or you could have him down low, just knocking a few bodies out the way. And I really like that mongrel of Jack Pratt. I wanted him in there just to give a bit of curry and a bit of spice in there. I then had the tractor on the bench, and I apologise in advance, Jordan. I don't know. It was a tough pick. Zach Stewart, Deverell, and Mackenzie Leecroft rounding out my bench there. And once again, I had Nathan as my coach for much the same reasons as yourself, Ash. Right. We get over
Have we got like a drum roll or some sort of big music or intro video for the team of the year for Chop? Or?
He's I don't know. His screen's gone black. I'm a little bit nervous about what he's doing here now. Hold on one second as I bring the team up for Cori.
Yeah, I'm getting a sense that there might be some intro music or some sort of...
I feel he's got something special for us here. All right, Cori, over to you, mate.
Gee, we're they're quite unique, aren't they? I really like. I can't believe I've left Zach Lauritsen out. I really can't. I'm sorry, Zach.
Well, I can't believe I had Jordan Deere starting on the bench. So sometimes you make the tough calls.
Yeah, sorry, Church. I really am sorry, mate. I've just commented to your coach, to Nathan. I said I can't believe I've left him out. Yeah, that was definitely one that I've oversight. And it's really interesting. I mean, whilst Chop's trying to get back online, it's interesting. Bryce Gratz, he's an outstanding player. Like, he'd be one that you could stick in midfield and play a role. He's outstanding. Max Itiwi, I know Chop loves Max. Probably a bit too young for mine at this point to make a team of the year, but he's a terrific footballer. Sam Howard at fullback, great. Church, Quinlan, and Thomas. I tend to go for teams that have a bit of speed as well. Max is a wonderful football player, but in a team of the year, I think you've got to go for a bit of all
I
round.
suppose you're not playing necessarily in opposition either, so you don't know.
I try and think about how
who's manning up on Max Quinlan would be the question, and you just don't know because there's no. It's an imaginary team, I suppose you're playing against.
I like Max, but I think he's a terrific player. I love that back line; it's terrific. Ryan Arthur's a jet. Pat Murphy, Luca Conlon. He's like Oscar Smythe. He's one of those unsung heroes at Cardiff. He just plays well every week, and if you watch him on tomorrow, he'll do it again tomorrow, and we'll call him a bit. And we won't make too much note of him, but he'll just do a job and he'll be great at it. And that's what makes Cardiff a really good side when they're on. I think they've got a lot of those type of guys. Rylan Hoffman and Ruben Miller. Yeah, Ruben Miller's a goal sneak. If I've seen one, he's just terrific at that. And a tractor and Pitbull. Yeah, it's a really nicely balanced team. Ethan Williams is a great player. Look, he's another one I've left out, and I'll go, yeah, I could have him in the team too. I like him.
Yep.
Dane Robertson's a great player. Like, Dane Robertson's a serviceable player for the entrance, Bateau Bay. And I like how Jack Grimmonley's captain in Chop's team of the year, because about 2 or 3 years ago, you probably wouldn't say that about Jack, but he's developed into a real leader.
Yep.
And that's a credit to himself and his coach. I used to love umpiring his dad as when I first came to leave. Spooner was a great player for Terrigal Voca. Jai Baby's a terrific ruck too. I mean, the options that you have in our comp now are endless.
Yep.
And it's wonderful that we're able to have 3 different teams look, we've got a lot of sames, but the differences in our teams are quite unique, and I really enjoy all three of them.
Yep, no, agreed. It would be interesting to see them play each other. Obviously, you can't replicate players and have them line up against themselves, but it'd be interesting to see all three teams go head to head and see how they matched up and who had the better footy now, so to speak. Corey, I don't know whether you're back with us there. We're still seeing a black screen.
No. Well, do you know what the three teams of the year tell us, Shane? That the rep side just needs to be chosen a little bit earlier, because if they could get these guys on the park, we could be a pretty dangerous team, the AFL Hunter Central Coast. You know, we've shown our three teams of the year. If you get a chance to watch this, and if you look at the socials during the week, 4-quarter chop, SK Darwin and Borgie the broadcaster, I'm sure we'll be happy to share ours. Feel free. I mean, I'm happy to say, yep, you got that wrong. I'm happy to go with it, as long as it's respectful, of course. I don't.
100%.
We're all about doing that, but we offer our opinions because we really love our comp and we want to see our comp grow. And I also know that the clubs are getting the Team of the Year nominations in the next week or two from Emily, and in the next 3 or 4 weeks they'll be voting on it. So there's some food for thought for everybody, and I hope you really enjoyed all three of our teams of the year.
Yeah, and listen, Cori has had some internet issues at just the wrong time, so we might even get Cori to talk about his team a little bit next week's show. So apologies there, Chop. We don't know what's happened, but we will see you tomorrow. Actually, I'm excited for tomorrow. We'll be out from 2 p.m. live on the Kings of Live Sport Bar TV. I look forward to sitting alongside both yourself and Cori tomorrow, and we'll see you then.
Yep, we'll see you on the Kings of Live stream at 2 p.m. tomorrow, guys. Take care and have a wonderful evening.